Today's lecture is on the data flow diagram. So data flow diagram, what is data flow diagram? Data flow diagram shows the flow of data inside the software system. It is important to know the direction of data flow, how data are input to the system, data are processed by the system, data are stored by the system, and how output data flows. Data flow diagrams not only helps the designers while designing the architecture, but it also helps the requirements analyst and requirements engineers who collect and analyze the requirements, and also important for developers because it is the data for which the system is designed and developed, and it is the data which actually run the system. There are three levels of DFD. DFD means data flow diagram. For simplicity, we call it as a DFD. So the level 0, DFD 0, DFD 1, DFD 2. DFD 0 is also called the context model or context diagram. Why we call it as a context? So it will be discussed shortly. DFD 0 is the highest level DFD, means we will not go into the concrete detail, the inside detail, but rather DFD 0 provides an overview of the whole entire system and what is outside the surrounding. So that's why it is called context diagram. DFD 0 involves the major processes, external entities and elements to the system which are not the part of the system, means data flow and storage are shown without going into the detailed internal processing of data occurs. See this example, DFD is drawn for point of sale system. We have this is the UML notation used for the application. This is for data store. So here we are not mentioning the detail components. The detailed components are not mentioned here, but application. So this application then contains the detailed components. But in DFD 0 there is no need. Admin or operator who operate the application, this is the customer and this is the supplier. So customer give you the order. So this means order is given to the customer. Order is given by the customer to operator, and operator give order to supplier for products, and then both the orders, either the customer order or order given to supplier, are entered to this application and are stored in this data store. One thing here is clear, that is the flow of data. So the flow of data is towards this data store using this application by operator. So input come from customer and both operator. So this is the context model of DFD 0. Now come to discuss the DFD 1, and we will extend this DFD 0 to DFD 1 then. Also remember that why DFD 0 is important. If we see, we don't go into the concrete details, but here we mention the external entities. Here the external entities, the customer, supplier, operator. We can take so many other examples, like if we are developing the chemical drug system. So we will develop the system, but what are the external entities involved in this application? There is a police department, that is the government body, that is the inspection, drug inspection. So different entities are involved that affect the software process. So in simply we can say in context model or in DFD0, we draw all the external entities that are either affected or that affect the system. Or in simple words, we can say the external stakeholders. DFD1, this level provides a more detailed view of the system. By breaking down the major processes identified in the level 0 of DFD into sub-processes. Each sub-process is depicted as a separate process on the level 1 DFD. The data flows and data stored associated with each sub-process are also shown. Here you see, we don't get the external entities. Here only we mention the operator because operator enters the data. That can be from any external entity, but operator enters. We don't need any application, so we mention all the sub processes. Product entry, the operator enter product, and product entry goes using this application. So this is the application process or application. So because the application assure the process and data goes here to database. Similarly, customer entry, supplier entry goes in this direction. And then purchasing product and supplier product. So all the flow of data is mentioned here. Now we extend further DFD1 into DFD2. This level provides an even more detailed view of the system by breaking down the sub-processes identified in the previous level 1 of DFD into further sub-processes. This means in more detail, we go in concrete, a very detail. Each sub-process is depicted as a separate process on level 2 of DFD. The data flows and data stores associated with each sub-process are also shown. So these we have not changed the application processes, but the sub processes involved, the concrete details involved are mentioned. Like we say, operator enter the customer data. So operator enter the customer detail. He can edit the detail or he can search the detail. So when the detail is entered, it is saved here. When it is edited, it is saved here. But when we search a record, so data comes to this application. So in searching, data come from the data store to the application. Similarly, operator enter the generate the sale invoice number. He generate the invoice number, so it is stored here. Search the sale, edit the sale, and receipt generation. So again, receipt generation is from data. Similarly, operator edit, search, and enter the products. When the product is entered, then product is stored in the product data store. That was the customer data store or customer table. This is the product table. So insertion and addition, updation involve the entry of data in this direction, while searching is opposite, because searching is to search the data, retrieve the data. So from data store, data come to this application like the customer. Similarly, this is the data store for the sale. When the sale is generated, the sale entry is here. Edit sale, Receipt generation, when we request for the operator request for cell generation, receipt generation, so receipt from the data is generated in this direction. Similarly, this is the accounts. So operator enter the customer, enter the debit and credit payments, and he can also edit. So entry of debit and credit and edit and in entry of debit and credit, the data flow direction is toward the account data store. But in case of searching, the data direction is opposite. Similarly, we have we can also this is from self perspective, but we can also draw the same diagram for the purchase. So DFD is very important. DFD 0 shows the high level components, the very high level components and external entities, and then DFD 1 which show the processes involved inside the DFD 0, and then we go to DFD 2 for further more details. The data entry is very important because remember that when we talk about the class diagram and operations, so operations is always performed on the data, like save, edit, search. These are all operations. So these all operations or functions are applied on the data. We enter the data, we save the data, we search the data. So all operations which are actually the functional requirements actually are, that's why I told you that for requirement analyst this diagram is important, because requirement analyst finalize the concrete detailed functional requirements from the behavior of data, and then attributes are finalized. Because customer ID is retrieved, customer ID is entered, so then when we laterally design the database, so based on this data flow diagram, we design a database. So data flow diagram is the base for the designers, database designer, architect designer, and also helps in requirements finalization. So this was all about the data flow diagram, or simply DFD. Thank you so much for watching my video. Thank you so much.